Welcome to the Let's Talk Growth podcast, where we focus on the topics that can help companies unlock their growth potential. Now here's your host, Bill Hupp.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Growth. Today, I'm joined once again by Mike Haldane, the founder and president of MarketWise Advising. Mike, how have you been?
I've been great. Thanks for asking, Bill.
Today is the first in a series of episodes in which a special guest joins us. So I'm delighted to welcome Brian Stout, the director of growth at AOK, an Indianapolis-based digital marketing agency, to the podcast. Thanks for coming on the pod to share your marketing insights with us, Brian.
Yeah, thanks, Bill and Mike. Appreciate you guys having me on today.
Brian, let's begin by you telling us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, probably like most people, I didn't have like a linear background into the world of sales and marketing. Years ago, I started out in outside sales, moved into the data side of sales and marketing, got into sales operations, marketing operations, sales, owned my own agency for a bit. But it's, now I'm back into sales and marketing, but mostly sales. Like my role at AOK today is the director of growth. So much of the focus and emphasis today is, getting new clients, helping existing clients with more services that we offer. But yeah, I've primarily worked in the space of healthcare throughout my career in public health, through nonprofits and for-profit businesses in the health tech space. That's where Mike and I actually met, was at Wolters Kluwer. We worked together for about 5 of the 7 years that I was at Wolters Kluwer.
Thinking back on all the companies you've worked for the past number of years, what would you say the biggest challenges to growth are?
There's so many. Probably the biggest ones that I've seen, just as my career has progressed over the last 20 plus years, is just breaking through the noise. There's so much that's being added to our plates on a daily basis, more technology. Like if you look at just the technology stack that's taken place over the last 12 years. I remember I was working in the marketing ops space when there was only about 100 companies, and now there's 11,000 if you look at Scott Brinker's marketing MarTech landscape. If you look at the sales tech, it's had similar growth. It used to be just a couple main solutions that you used, and if you think about it today, like as a sales and growth leader, you've got this huge stack of all these different things that you're trying to apply to your process to reach customers, to get your message through, to just help them solve their problems. So it's been a challenge, because it's like, I've worked in software. So you think about that tech debt that you have. Well, now sales and marketing has that same type of debt in their daily work, that they've got to track and monitor and look at the analytics and metrics to success and try to improve that. But at the end of the day, what you're trying to do is just reach customers so you can help them solve a problem. And the solutions have helped, but they've also added, additional debt to the work that you're trying to do.
So Brian, from your perspective, what would you say that the challenges are? So beyond just the huge number of applications and technologies that can potentially be applied, what would you say the challenges are once they've actually made a decision that they're going to go with a certain stack? In terms of implementing and using and getting the value out of those systems, what would you say the key hurdles are?
Obviously, you've got to onboard the team. So getting everybody using them effectively is certainly difficult for any organizations. Now, the great thing is they're getting more user friendly. Like they're thinking about UI, UX, the user experience. So you can move from one application to another. And it makes it easier because you're like, oh, that's similar to Salesforce or HubSpot or, some of those solutions that everybody has probably experienced, or, that kind of stuff. But that onboarding piece is definitely one of the hurdles, just getting everybody using the tools, putting the right metrics behind them. Like, are we looking for activities? Are we looking for intent? Are we looking for result? Like, an outcome? Like, putting that all together and knowing exactly, like I'm working on my strategic plan right now for this new company, and just figuring out like what our current stack is for all the different solutions that, I inherited by coming into this new organization. And then what are some of the solutions that potentially are missing, that I want to add, to help, execute the strategy that I'm trying to put in place. So, just, that's one of the challenges is one, a lot of times you don't just get to come in and like pick the perfect stack. You've got this Frankenstein stack that you've got, and you've got to work within the, the guidelines of that, and, and then try to fill in the gaps, like where are the things that I'm missing. But with anything else, there's new solutions, like in this case, that I've never used, that I'm going to have to learn, and just get up to speed. But the nice thing is there's some core business applications that most, sales and marketing organizations tend to use, that come from your bigger enterprise vendors like Salesforce or HubSpot, that everybody's comfortable. We can come in immediately, start pulling down reports, looking at our funnels, seeing where we've done business in the past, that kind of thing. So it's good that I have some common things, but then there's a whole bunch of tools that I'm inheriting that I've never used before, that I'm gonna have to get up to speed on. So that's that's just kind of a challenge at the beginning. But once I get up to speed, it should get a lot easier, to kind of know where I'm getting help, from the stack.
Brian, I'm curious about technology stacks in general for marketing leaders. When you move to a new company, how does a marketing leader decide what in a technology stack to keep and continue using, or whether it's worth the time and investment to transition to another vendor that perhaps they're more familiar with?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I've had that experience in a lot of the companies that I've come into. My recent company before the one I was at, we had actually acquired several companies over the previous 2 years, and we were merging the three companies together. So, three companies, three different tech stacks that they used in marketing and sales. In our case, we had to make decisions using Salesforce versus HubSpot, Marketo versus HubSpot, for our marketing automation, those kind of things. And the approach that we took was to evaluate what solution was going to get us to that next level. What solution was going to provide the team the growth that we were hoping to get, because they offered similar services. We had people that had different backgrounds that had used one stack versus the other. Ultimately, what we did is we just decided, we would go with a stack that was not as familiar with like one of the bigger teams, but one of the smaller companies that we acquired, because the solution was that enterprise solution that was going to get us to that next level. So it required a little bit of training that I had to purchase for my team and get them all onboarded and up to speed, so that they could now use this new marketing automation tool that synced with the CRM, and just get them all comfortable with that. But it was a difficult decision, because your team, they're very happy with the tools they know and love and they use day to day, and giving them something new causes that uncertainty. And once we got them up to speed, got them the training that they needed, they got comfortable, and it was back to the status quo. And now we had that enterprise solution that was going to get the organization to that next level. And that's what you want with growth. When you're making those decisions about your tech stack, you want to think about like what long term is going to give us the biggest bang for our buck. Yeah, there might be a learning curve that they have to go through, but once they get over that, that's going to help you get the growth that you're hoping to get. And that's why we made those decisions, and that's how we evaluate all the different solutions that we were integrating between the different teams, is what was going to be best for us in the long term for growth. And sometimes you just have to make difficult decisions, and some people are going to be happy in the short term, but in the long term, everybody is going to learn those items and get up to speed, and we're going to get the growth that we wanted.
Yeah, that's great insight, Brian. I wanted to switch gears a little bit and ask you about product launches. I know from our time together that you've got some pretty specialized knowledge in that area. So Can you talk a little bit about that, since products can be a significant driver of revenue?
Yeah, I have a special place in my heart for product launches, and what I've learned over the last 5 to 6 years, a process called category design, which takes product launches to the next level, because you're actually looking not just at the product, but you're more marketing the problem, um, and that creates, the person that understands the problem the most typically has the solution to that. That comes from a book on category design called Play Bigger, which I read, I don't know, in the 2017 timeframe, and I've had the opportunity to implement that into the product marketing rules that I've had over the last 7 years. And it's just, it's a different approach. They have like typical product launches. You're doing it on a regular basis with a lot of software products that I've worked in, depending on whether it's a quarterly release, annual release. Uh, there's also, you have daily release, but you don't, with those type of, when you're releasing product updates and new product features, you don't have a time to have like that actual launch where you can build all that customer enablement information. You can do the marketing around it. But when you have like a big launch, like a category design lightning strike, you're typically saving that and doing that type of launch with something big, for the organization, to help get that attention. So there's they call it a lightning strike inside the book, if you guys haven't read the book Play Bigger. But the approach is that you get the whole company involved, and you have different things leading up to it, and it can take, in a couple of companies, about 6 months to do it effectively, to put together all the pieces that you need. You want to get analysts, talking about your product launch, because you're bringing something big into the market that's category changing, and it's just a great process and framework that I've used with product launches, because the world is noisy. It's hard to break through the noise, and if you're just dripping out content, and they call it like spreading out like peanut butter with your marketing. It's hard to break through that noise. But when you do these big category level product launches, these lightning strikes, it's meant to stop people in their tracks and pay attention for a week or two. And a good example of that is what Salesforce does with Dreamforce. Every year, the world descends on California, to their event, and that's where they launch their latest updates to their products. And people pay attention. The analysts, the news reporters, everybody is paying attention to what's happening at that event, and all the vendors and partners are showing up. And that is a huge product launch. Whereas many companies, they're just releasing it. And it's not getting picked up. The world's not paying attention. And what, at the end of the day, what you're trying to do is get more people to understand that you've got a solution that can help solve their problem. So yeah, I've been a big fan of that kind of approach of looking for big problems, and then creating a lightning strike around that for your solution. Now, it's not for every company. There's different ways that, like, not every company is going to be doing that type of event, but for a couple of the companies that I've worked at in the past, we took that approach. We did that at Bamboo Health with our re-release kind of our new company back in November of 2022. We did a lightning strike event at the HLTH, or the health event. And that was, a concerted effort. Like, it was, we wanted to be everywhere. We wanted, everyone to see us pay attention to our new branding, our new messaging around real-time care intelligence, and so forth. And that was the big product launch that we did to talk about the new companies that had come together, and the new solution that was combined by bringing those companies together.
Yeah, I've, you and I have done some of that work together, and I've done some of that work at places like 3M and Intel and so forth, where you really do involve the entire ecosystem, the press, analysts, the internal team, customers, and everybody is sort of, delivering your message for you to try to generate as much excitement and momentum as possible. And that's really what we're talking about here, right? Lightning Strike makes a lot of sense to me. It's a big event, and And we're trying to get people's attention because this is a big thing that just happened or that is in the process of happening. One of the questions that I had as we were talking about this is, what about the light launches? How does that methodology play out when you're doing releases that maybe aren't, a brand new product category, but that are still significant? How have you managed that in the past, and what are your recommendations?
Yeah, managing those in the past, it's just having a framework and putting together, just like any project, like a timeline that you're working back from. If you know that the product is going to be ready by the end of Q2, you work back from that as far as like making sure that you get, all the training ready for the new updates to the product for customers. You get the messaging, you're working with marketing, you're enabling sales to go out and talk about the new features or the new product. Yeah, for those light launches, it follows the same process. It's just, scaled back. It's you're equipping sales, readying marketing with new messaging, and their campaigns, making sure that we have campaigns built around the updates and the new product launch. But it's just done at a smaller scale. In my experience, we just work back from a date. Like we're trying to hit a date typically. And my wife Lori, she's a chief marketing officer at a tech company in the networking space and the networking technology space. And we have these conversations all the time about product launches and the best ways to do that. But yeah, you're trying to coordinate around events, campaigns, enabling sales, making sure everybody's ready so that when the product's ready, that you have customers. And obviously you've got the alpha and beta stages. You're trying to get trial beta customers to use the product before you release it generally to the rest of the public. You've got, obviously GA is the generally accepted, product release when everybody can start using it, start using the new feature, or start using the new product kind of thing. So,
Yep.
And I apologize because most of my experience is in software. So that's how I think about it, is like, software product launches. I probably didn't clarify that earlier, but most of the work that I've done is in software over the last 15, 20 years. So I always think about product launches for software, but it applies the same just if you were launching a service. With my new company, I'm thinking about, okay, what's my pricing? What's my packaging? What's my, what's the messaging that I need to get? We offer a service. We build websites. We help customers with campaigns. We help them with their advertising. Like what is the solution that I'm offering to solve a problem that they have? And how do I want to message that? How do I want to launch that to my ideal customer profile? And just working back from those kind of things inside of a framework.
Brian, is this approach that you've been describing, whether it's for light launches or the sort of lightning type events, is it applicable to all types of companies? How can companies of different sort of size and resources take those lessons and implement them with their product and service launches?
Depending on the company size, like it's a resource constraint. Like the larger you are, the more people and funds that you have to do your launch will definitely affect your overall strategy, in my experience. But at the end of the day, you're trying to accomplish the same thing. I'm certified with the Product Marketing Alliance, Pragmatic Marketing, so I follow frameworks from those as far as like go to market. Like you're putting together your positioning and messaging. You've got your storytelling, your narrative frameworks, and all of that stuff. When you follow those frameworks, it you're just scaling it back based on like in the company that I'm at today. We're not as large as the $5 billion plus multinational company like I worked at Wolters Kluwer. Like that, that company had big, it was a big company. It had lots of resources, lots of people. We're a small, scrappy team, so our launch to our ideal customer is going to be much smaller. But we're still using the same frameworks to think about that, because you need clarity. You need to have positioning. That where you understand the problem of your customer and how to message that to them, and that doesn't every company needs to do that. Like if you can't clearly articulate the problem that you're solving for that customer, they're not going to buy anything from you. That's just, that's the truth of it. And unfortunately, I've seen some companies that create a solution and then they go looking for a problem. And then they try to hire, somebody to find that problem and then to figure out how to message it and position it so they can sell it. But they should have flip-flopped it. Kind of what's the problem you want to solve today for customers? Because that's what every customer is looking for, is you to solve a problem for them. And typically, that person that created that application, they were solving a problem for themselves. And they just didn't do the market research to discover whether or not there was more people that had that same problem, to see whether or not it was worthwhile to bring a product to market or a service to market. It doesn't matter which size organization, whether you're doing, under $1 million a year or over $1 million a year to $1 billion a year, you still got to solve that problem for that customer. And you go through that process when you're launching anything to understand, their needs, who they are, what kind of problem they're trying to solve to make their lives easy. I mean, that's why there's 11,000 plus marketing technology solutions. There's a lot of problems. So people are trying to create these, solutions to solve these micro problems inside of marketing or inside of sales. So that's why you're seeing hundreds and hundreds of, applications launched to market every year trying to help us, because, and just, it's not just we're all solving the same problem, and they, just taking a different approach to it. There's lots of problems and people need solutions for that. So if you can get in front of the right customer, they're going to buy it.
Brian, Mike tells me that you're an expert in sales operations, and you talked about how you've been, focusing on sales, especially lately. Can you talk a little bit about that, metrics and reporting and decision making, and just kind of what are sort of the big topics in sales operations these days?
Yeah, I've spent probably a decade or more in sales ops and marketing ops, and getting that correct for your organization. And every organization is a little different, just depending on how the revenue model works. Like, how are they bringing in new customers? Like, what's important? And you have different ways that you're going to market. You might have SDRs that are, qualifying leads, and then you have account managers or sales executives that are going out and closing those leads. And so it really depends on the organization, how you set it up. But at the end of the day, what you're looking for is the flow, that customer journey that's taking place, and capturing the data along that customer journey that gives the organization's leadership the opportunity to kind of project what the future might look like based on the activities that are taking place from lead to close. So typically your sales funnel, you have that awareness stage, where there's lots of activity, lots of, trying to raise that awareness. Marketing's doing that. Sales hunters are out there doing it, that are capturing information. So from a sales and sales operations standpoint, it's just capturing those metrics that show those activity levels. And, you've got new sales, you've got renewals, you've got sales to existing customers, all that stuff that take into account. So it's hard to generalize it, but at the end of the day, they used to call me spreadsheets. This dates me a little bit, because now we've got sales tools that automates and does all that stuff that we can get our reporting out of Salesforce or HubSpot that, shows you what that is. But I was spreadsheets because I used to take large quantities of the sales data and try to predict where we were going as an organization, so that leadership could make those decisions about, hiring and, growth. Where are we going to make our next investment? Like, we had a process at Wolters Kluwer where annually we'd kind of look at everything and see, where we had grown, from the different solutions that we'd sold over the previous year, and where we thought the growth was going to be going forward. And we'd make some assumptions about that, and we'd build a data model so that we could then talk to, the executive leadership, like, this is where we think we need to invest. This is where we think we need to add sales and marketing dollars to, also that we, could get the growth that we're hoping to achieve. And it's a very, very complex product, but there, like I said, there's new solutions like Clary that are coming out that, can tell you where the revenue is at that's hidden in your organization and who's ready to buy and who's not. And, that kind of stuff. We didn't have that, a decade ago when I was working with Mike at Wolters Kluwer. Man, I would have loved to have had some of those types of solutions that they've created that, show who are the really warm and hot buyers based on anonymized intent data that, we didn't have. We were looking at spreadsheets trying to figure out, where we thought things were going to be, and that sometimes caused a solution. But you want to have good reporting. You want to have good visualizations that show executive leaders kind of where things are at today and where we think they're going to go. And then obviously downstream, you want to be able to show your sales team where they're performing, maybe where they need to make some improvements. And a lot of times, the data is going to help with that. And it's garbage in, garbage out. We've always heard that, right? Like if we're not using the tools to capture that information manually, we need to accept this fact that sometimes it's just going to be directionally correct. So my thing with the data is like I still use spreadsheets a little bit just because I feel comfortable using them, but they're, I'm also using the CRM marketing stack that we have to capture all that information, and it's showing me reports. It's showing where, I've got data today, and where I need to make more work to move leads through the funnel.
Yeah, I remember those days well. Brian is a master of Excel, and those report stacks were impressive, to say the least. Brian, I want to talk a little bit about where sales operations, in some cases falls down, where it doesn't work as intended. Can you maybe just give an example or two of where you've seen that and why?
When sales operations falls down is when you're not working well with the sales leadership and the teams to understand why you're capturing the information, how it's being used, why it's important to, completely fill out a lead and continue to update the status and the tracking. That's where I've seen it fall down the most in the companies that I've worked at, is if you only, create the lead and then you close it, you don't know what's happening in between. You don't have any idea of how long things potentially can take to go through the funnel, like through the different stages of go from qualification to the proposal to the, to the negotiation to the closing. I mean, like you need to know those things. And if it's not being updated by sales, and again, that's some of that tech debt that we've all inherited, or, I guess job debt, or role debt. I don't know what you would call it, but we all have it with these technologies. If it's not automated to do that, like to know that, okay, we've had these conversations with this client, and now, we've sent out a proposal, but we don't change the status of that in our solution. The person running sales operations or rev ops that's pulling the data out and looking at where the things are within the different stages, it's going to seem like, we've got a whole bunch of stuff stuck in the qualification stage when it's, proposal's already gone out. So we're, getting closer to that potential close. So that's where I see in sales rep is really falls apart, is just not keeping updated on the tools, because the teams don't understand the value of that to the leadership and to predicting, where we've got our gaps. Because at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to figure out, what revenue we're going to close this quarter, month, week, whatever. But, a lot of sales organizations I work with have really good process of doing sales and pipeline review, and they have a good sales cadence. But sometimes the information that's captured in those meetings doesn't reflect what's happening inside their sales tools, because they haven't updated some of those things. And it's just, that's when it kind of breaks down, is when you're not getting that, or you're not getting that in real time. But it's improving. It's definitely improving, and it's improving. Let's just say that with the tools. Yeah,
you're describing the age-old problem of, how do you get the sales team excited about using the CRM? what value is in it for them, and then how can that data be used from a management perspective to predict what the future looks like, and then to make decisions about where investments need to be made and that sort of thing. So,
And marketing cares about that too. I don't want to give marketing a pass on that, because like many marketing organizations are driving revenue today, and they need to see that their marketing efforts are paying off. So they need to see that, okay, these types of campaigns or these types of events or, these types of activities are driving revenue. And if they're driving revenue faster, that's a lever or a dial that they can turn up. But if you don't have the sales and marketing groups working together, there's, issues where they create an all new opportunity, and it that marketing activity that led to that opportunity doesn't get married to that. Then they think that the stuff that they're doing in marketing isn't working, and then it creates additional tension between sales and marketing, because they know that, hey, that person came to our event, and we know that that's when we first met them, was at that event. That lead went into the system, but the sales rep that followed up created as a whole new opportunity, a whole new contact, and they're no longer connected. So that marketing person's like, we want to get credit for for helping drive sales, because we have a revenue target, so forth, that kind of thing. So I see some of those issues with sales and marketing operations, like just everybody wants to get credit for their thing doing their thing, and
yeah,
it's not perfect, but again,
it's
many improvements over the last decade.
right. Yeah, totally agree. And the connection between sales and marketing, I tend to look at it, especially in the recent 10 years or so, as a commercial operation, which includes sales, marketing, product management, the pricing team, et cetera, so that it's one set of objectives and one effort, even with pockets of activity, they all have to be connected. And, your example about an event, I've always tracked lead source. And to your point, it has to be that, okay, this is where it originated. So we got value out of that, even to the point where you can calculate cost per lead and that sort of thing over time. And then the sales team picks it up and runs with it, and ultimately it closes. All of that needs to be tracked so that we can see the value of each of the buckets of activity, and how they connect. So thanks, Brian.
Yeah, and it's multi-touch. Like I don't expect people to believe that that event is what closed that sale. You hope that your customers, even maybe you met them at that event, they're going to download white papers, they're going to have conversations with the sales team, they're going to get presentations, it's just a multi-touch attribution and we can get into arguments about which type of attribution is better for different types of organization. But at the end of the day, it's just, we got to understand that usually, depending on your sales model, it may not be you meet a customer, they buy something, unless it's B2C typically. But in B2B, which I've worked in a bunch, it's going to be multi-touch. There's going to be lots of interactions that are going to take place before that customer ever gets to that that buying decision. So capturing all those things is great, and these tools that we have available to us now can show us like all the different things so that we understand what that true journey is for that customer across their buying life cycle. And as we get more informed about that stuff, we can make better decisions as a sales and marketing organization about how best to reach our ideal customer.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. I know we're about out of time here, but I just wanted to make one last comment, and that was that, to the extent that we can understand the ideal touch points, that can help us design strategies from a marketing perspective that, that hit exactly those touch points. So if we know that, it starts with an event, and then there's a follow-up email campaign, and then there's a sales discussion, maybe there's a customer visit, or a visit with a reference after that. And we know that that's the ideal path, and we can design our plans around that, because we know that's the most efficient way to get from a prospect to a closed opportunity. So a lot of great insight that can come from the systems that you're talking about, and from having the organization bought in and adhering to using those systems in the way that they were designed. So thank you very much, Brian, for that insight.
It's a journey.
It's a journey.
Well, Brian, we'll end it on that note and let you get back to it. Once again, Brian Stout is the Director of Growth at AOK, a digital marketing agency out of Indianapolis. Thanks for taking some time to join us today on the Let's Talk Growth podcast.
Yeah, thanks, Bill and Mike. I really appreciate you guys having me on today. This was great.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of Let's Talk Growth. If you enjoyed it, feel free to rate and review the podcast. You can get new episodes and listen to old ones by visiting marketwiseadvising.com/podcasts. Let's Talk Growth is owned, produced, and published by MarketWise Advising, LLC.